All right, lads, welcome back to the Daily Close. It's now time for another one of our famous technical analysis where we go over the market. We talk about particular coins that we think are going to perform and give you some insight on how to read these charts so maybe you too can make some money. But, this is not financial advice, so make sure that you also read the charts as well. Do your own research before you decide to put any money into the market. There is always risk associated with this business. Now, if you guys give us a like and subscribe, it really helps us with the channel. Definitely giving us a comment. We'll get right back to you. Hitting that bell notifications means that you'll be one of the first people to know when we come out with a new video. And we just love that. But, without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right to the market and hand it off to you, Gojo, and tell us a little bit about BTC.
Thank you very much. Good to see you guys. Hope you're doing well. Everyone is doing okay. Just want to talk a little bit about fantastic. That's what I like to hear. But we'll see if we can say the same about BTC. So let me just talk through some of my observations, and also since I did cover BTC in the last video, maybe I can also share about what kind of movements we've made since then. I think in the last video, I talked about this rising wedge that we observed, followed by this kind of mini falling wedge, which we eventually broke out of. So I think based on our prediction at the time is if we were to break out of this falling wedge, we could see somewhat of an upward trend, which we've observed here in a couple of days. In the last couple of days. By the way, I am on the daily. I've also added a couple more indicators here because I think when it comes to technical analysis, combination of indicators where we talk about, let's say, momentum, we talk about volatility, talk about volume, and we'll also talk about trend is really important in deciding whether or not we make a move here. So the first thing I want to touch on is actually volume. If we look at the VPVR on the right-hand side, one thing that we can observe is we're actually within this node here. I think it's what you look at when you're looking at the VPVR is the bigger these lines are, the further out they come out. It's actually an indicator of the amount of volume that we're trading within that specific price range. Point of control is still at 37K. Here up at 62.5K. With less data, you're going to notice less historical data, less activity. You'll notice that the nodes are much smaller. But typically what we can see is if we are in an area where we're touching on these nodes, we can expect that there's a lot of volume here. So at the moment, we're seeing relatively low volume. I also want to talk about this volume indicator down here. We're slightly underneath the this moving average. So it tells us at the moment where we are in this current price action, there's just not a lot of volume. So that's one indicator of change. So if we're expecting to see any kind of big move, we know that we want to see large volume accompanying it. And right now we're not seeing any of that at all. The other thing I want to look at is actually the historical volatility. So talking about volatility right now, we're relatively low. So right now we're reading 30.96. What that means is compared to the last 252 trading days, we're only at about 30.96 in terms of level of volatility. We can also back that up with a little bit of a look here in the Bollinger Bands. As you guys know, the wider these bands are, the upper end and the lower end, the more volatility we can see. As of now, there's certainly a little bit more volatility than what we saw in the beginning of September. We saw a little bit of consolidation here, maybe not as apparent on the daily, but we can definitely see when we go down in terms of timescales, which I'll show you a little bit later on. But when we saw these upper hooks come out in about beginning of October, one thing we want to look at with the Bollinger Bands is if we see the lower band hook downward and the upper band hook upward, that is typically a sign of a big change. Again, because volatility is direction agnostic, we cannot say for certain what direction it'll be going. But that's where the next thing I want to talk about comes in, which is our key moving averages. So I'm just going to remove the Bollinger Bands here for a bit, pull out our EMAs. What we can see is we are trending above all of our key EMAs. So we're definitely still keeping this bullish market structure. For those of you who are looking to make an entry here in BTC, perhaps what this is saying is we're going to probably ride this out for a little bit longer until we see, it's been a nice support for us for the last couple of days. I know there are some of us who are intraday traders, so maybe if I look at the 4-hour, I can give you a little bit more insight on what we can expect. Over here, we're seeing that the point of control is actually at 61.8K. Which means, sorry, it's just dropped down to 43. 43.2K means that this is where we've seen the most volume traded. If we're also looking at the right-hand side at our VPVR, we're seeing tons of volume, especially around the 6.2K range. We're still observing here. We're using this 21-day EMA as a nice support. So we've stayed here quite faithfully, actually, for the last couple of days. Sorry, for the last couple of hours. We're also seeing that I know it looks quite tiny right now, and we can see it more in the 1 and the 2-hour charts, but we're also forming a little bit of a downward wedge here. And depending on whether or not we break out of here, could be an indication of whether we make a move upward or downward. So things to keep in mind. I forgot to mention, actually, one thing I didn't look at in terms of momentum for the daily is we're in, at least on the daily, we are in underbought territory. So we're now underneath, we're reading at about 11.86, which means that perhaps if you are an intraday trader, it may be a good time to find an entry here. You can see a little bit more clearly the downward wedge that I drew here, but we can also do something similar on the 1-hour. So if I pull this out and I magnify this slightly, there's a downward wedge that we can draw from here down to about here, and then likewise from here down to about here. We noticed that we broke out of this today. So for those of you who managed to use this downward wedge and also was able to get this nice read on the SMA, you could have easily made an entry right here and taken some profits at about the 63K. So it's between 62 to about 63K change here. Within the hourly, and again, when we talk about timeframes, hourly is always going to be a little bit harder to read and predict, simply because with more time and with more data, we can make much more informed decisions about trades. But what this tells us actually right now is when it comes to our volatility with DHVP, we're currently sitting at 0.27. This is basically telling us that we're likely going to continue the trend if ever we see volatility drop to these levels very low. It basically tells us that we're likely to continue the trend without making any kind of volatile movement in any direction. So I don't know if I'm missing anything. Maybe I'll just do one read on the weekly just to give us a little bit more large picture overview. So if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to pull this out here. On the weekly, charts look pretty good. We've bounced off of the 21 EMA, but I think the same story goes here. When we're looking overall in terms of territory, when we're looking at volume, we've moved past, and we've historically not had much data since we've broken a new all-time high when we're within this range. So what this tells us is the price action really likes to stick to where it's familiar. Where you see these protrusions, that's where price likes to sit for a while. But because we don't have so much data here, actually the VPVR on the weekly at least may not be the best indicator to tell us where we're going. But in these larger timeframes, I think what I'd like to look at in terms of volume at least is how do we look in terms of overall where we are in relation to the moving average. And then also where do we sit in terms of our stock RSI, which tells us momentum. Are we overbought or are we oversold? We're currently in overbought territory. So I will leave it at that. I know it's quite inconclusive as of now, but for me, if I'm looking at the chart on the daily, what this is basically telling us is we can't expect any massive moves right now. Everything that the charts are pointing toward is that we're likely to continue within this range. We might see even a little bit of consolidation for a little bit, as indicated by our HVP as well as our volume indicators. And unless we make any kind of real move, either below or above this SMA, 21-day SMA specifically, I think we can expect that we're going to be in somewhat choppy territory for the next couple of days. So that's it for me. I hope this was useful. Handing over to knxqtr.
Great, great. Very good analysis. I like what I see. Let's move over to ETH. Give me 1 sec. I always get confused with this. Okay, I hope I'm sharing the right screen. Can you see a chart? Anything resembling a chart?
I think it looks like a chart. Yeah.
Okay.
Might be wrong.
Great. Okay, let's have a look at ETH. ETH is following Bitcoin in respect to breaking the trend here. So as always, I'm going to break down the longer term timeframes on the weekly and daily, and then go down to maybe 4 hour, maybe an hourly as well. But what are we seeing on the weekly here? I think last time I covered this chart, we were testing new all-time highs. So we closed the weekly above the previous all-time high, which is a very, very good sign. We now, well, we had that a higher low confirmation. So we are now in a long-term bullish structure. So you've got your first low there, you've got your high there, which is the retest of the weekly close on the higher time frames. We came down to make a higher low, and now we've broken those all-time highs. So it's very, very bullish. There's nothing bearish about this chart. It looks very bullish. The only thing I would like to see is volume increasing on the weekly. It looks relatively weak here. So, coming back down to test the previous all-time highs at around about $2,940, around about that level. Anywhere in between 3,900 and 3,400. We could wick a little bit lower than that, but any closure below that would look a little bit more worrying on the weekly. I don't think that's what's going to happen, as typically when we do break new all-time highs, especially in the long-term timeframes, we have made substantial all-time highs after that as well. So on the weekly, looking very good. Let's have a look at some indicators on what they're telling us. So on the RSI, you can see here that we've played out a little bit of bearish divergence, which we did play out. We've made our way back into the bullish control zone, which is a very bullish sign. I like that. If we do confirm a high here, though, one thing that I would be worried about on the weekly time frame, that is if we confirm a high here, that would indicate that we would be making another drive of bearish divergence, which would take us back down to, I would assume, lower levels, maybe 3,850, and then subsequently around 3,400. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't think that's going to happen. I think the RSI will play out as long as we get more volume coming in here to drive us to new all-time highs. The stochastics looking good, freshly crossed up to the upside, rejection of the neutral zone here, which is very nice to see again. Stokes pointing up is always a bullish sign as well. We are getting into the critical zone, which isn't necessarily a bearish sign, but do be aware that small pullbacks can happen on the weekly time frame around the critical zone there. Having said that, previously, if we look at history during big bull runs and bullish market uptrends, we have maintained in the critical zone for quite a while. So, on a weekly basis, this has been probably a few months up in this critical zone. However, in this area here, most recently, we did just pop our heads into the critical zone and a small pullback. But I do expect us to be making parabolic runs very soon. So a bit of hopium for you guys there. if we do a quick, so one thing I wanted to point out as well is we are actually playing out this pattern here. I think I pointed this out last time when I covered ETH, but this is a very typical pattern. It's a cup and handle pattern, and we can actually make a measured move on this. So if we take this and we place it at the breakout, the measured move would take us around about $6,200, $6,300, which is not bad. That's another, let's see, it's another 50% from here, and then perhaps play a little bit of a pullback, consolidate a little bit before moving higher. But we are in the middle of actually playing out this pattern with measured targets of around 6,000, around about the $6,000 level. The jewel is very good. It looks very good to me. You've got your hodl, your long signals here with the green signal line here. You've got the pink line, which is the slow moving, which I actually put more weight on, crossing above the average of the jewel, which is good. You can see the faster moving line, which is the blue line, has already crossed above there. We are heading into the critical zone at the moment, but we are having this pink slow moving line, which generally dictates the general trend a little bit better, moving above the moving average as well. So everything's pointing up. EMA, the average of the EMAs is pointing up as well, which I like to see. So very bullish on the weekly timeframes. Volatility, again, we are seeing a move up in volatility, crossing the moving average, this white line here, which is good with a movement up. As Gojo mentioned, volatility is direction agnostic. So we are actually increasing in price with an increase in volatility. Momentum is in the bullish control zone, and we have trend as well. So the holy trinity, we've got bullish trend, we have momentum, and we have volatility playing into our favor here. So looking very, very good on the weekly. I won't spend too long on the weekly. Let's go down to a daily and see what we're seeing here. So yeah, on the daily close, we did retest that. We did get a little bit of rejection, but we are consolidating below resistance, and consolidation below resistance at all-time highs is usually a good thing. We did pop up slightly, coming back down to back test that now, but the Stokes are telling us that maybe this correction isn't fully done yet. We have the Stokes kind of in a downward posturing here. The jewel as well. The jewel pointing downwards a little bit, although the average is actually in the upwards direction. You have your sort of sell, the hard sell signal here with the red line, which is your hodl, your short signal. So on the daily, we are losing a little bit of momentum. I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. I would say that comes with not necessarily a downside move, but maybe some consolidation at this area before moving up higher. But I do expect a resolution to be made within the next couple of days, and hopefully to the upside. Again, with volatility crossing back up the moving average, it's very, very good. We have an increase in the volatility profile with a move to the upside as well. You can see that we did have a bit of a decrease in volatility on this move up, which kind of it's a little bit worrying. Not worrying in the sense that we're going to crash all the way back down and the bull market is over, but in the sense that this move upwards is starting to lose a little bit of momentum, and I would actually be looking for a bigger correction and a bigger pullback, fairly soon before we move even higher, which is all healthy, as long as we make the higher low and keep the bullish trend. On the longer term timeframes, that's completely fine. Let's have a look at some other indicators as well. VPVR, well, we're well above where we have most of the historical data, so there's not much to go off this. Let's look at the moving averages, trading above all moving averages on the daily. I think on the weekly too, yeah, way above the 9 EMA here, which is good, and the daily as well. We are actually using the yellow line, which is the 13 EMA as nice support, and also the blue line, which is the 21 EMA. But as long as we're trading above all these moving averages, it's generally a good sign. And then on the 4-hourly, the 4-hour charts, you can see in a bit more detail what is happening, and it tells maybe a little bit of a different story. Again, trading above all moving averages, bullish. You know, I don't have anything bearish to say about this. We are in a bullish uptrend with our higher highs and higher lows. So we are maintaining the trend. The 4-hourly stochastic has freshly crossed down, which does, indicate to me at least that we do see a little bit of a pullback here before we move up. We actually confirmed a bit of bearish divergence there as well. So I'd like to see us again maybe bounce off the neutral area on this RSI, and then make a sort of a higher low on the 4-hourly trend here. But nothing too serious to be worried about right now on the low time frames. Volatility remains a little bit low. That's fine, as long when we see consolidation and low volatility, that is generally a good sign. Volume, I would like to see volume pick up a little bit here. I think that if we don't get enough volume coming in when we're making new all-time highs, that does suggest that the trend at least is weakening a little bit. And as I mentioned before, I do expect a more medium kind of pullback before we do blast past the new all-time highs again. So overall, very bullish. High time frames remain very, very bullish. Weekly, dailies looking good. 4-hourly, maybe a little bit of consolidation, and maybe one more push. I mean, let's draw some. Let's get some targets here. If we take a measured move from the top of this downtrend to here, yeah, we hit the 1.272. I would expect us to maybe, if we had one more drive, maybe in between the 1.418 and the 1.618. So in between this area here, which is about 4,470 and 4,700, around that area, before we do make a bigger pullback, where I imagine that this lower term time frame trend will break. But as long as we hold the trend on the high time frames, like the daily and the weekly, I just see that as a healthy correction. So ETH is looking very good. I don't think there's anything to be worried about now. I do think that we will see, both on BTC and ETH, we will see some sort of whiplash movement where late longs will get punished and liquidated, and then we move to the downside. Late shorts will probably get liquidated again, and then we make our real move up, into 6,000s, even 5 figures. Maybe not by the end of the year, but into early 2022. That's definitely something I'm looking at. But that's it for ETH.
All right, that's good. It's good. Now let me move finally over to my piece, the wild card, and I will be looking over Harmony. Yeah, so just starting on the highest time frame for the weekly here. So anyone who's been paying attention to Harmony recently has been having some good moves. And now right now I have my CT Mac on right now, and the most recent time since about maybe September's time or so, we've been trading above all of the indicators here. So this has been very bullish. But I mean, even from quite some time now, I mean, Harmony's really been making some good moves. We're seeing our favorite lower lows. We are getting higher highs. We did have a whip back down here, I believe. Actually, let me just move this out of the way. Yeah, that's consistent with our May dump, where we took a big one. But we have already come right back above, crossing above. Just get my marker back on again. All right, crossing above this, hitting a new all-time highs. And right now, this week, now we are still continuing the trend up. This overall is incredibly bullish on the longest time frame for Harmony, which it's obviously an incredibly bullish sign. I'd also like to put on my Ichimoku cloud, where the white is the base, the blue is the change. It's been following this pretty regularly, but we were so far above our you could say the green cloud. This is incredibly bullish. I would say that we are tightening up a little bit around here. So, I mean, there is a possibility that either A, this will continue to trend upward, which would be favorable to anybody who has a position in Harmony right now. But it could also have a quick pull back down, which I think in all sense, Harmony might be due for a small correction. But I mean, as you can see back here, we've had some moments where we've stayed above in the RSI for a couple of weeks. We've traded above the RSI, and we've kept that going, especially here, which would say almost like about a couple months or so, maybe a month or so. We've traded far above the RSI. So this, even though it's breaking into the top part of the RSI right now, that's not an indication it's going to pump down too fast. It might very well just continue up in this realm before it actually pumps back down again. Volume has been, for the past couple of weeks, has been trading above the moving average here. We're starting to get a little less volatility, a little less volume, which means we might have a bit more volatility potentially coming up. Now, move in, let's see here. Let's go down to my daily. Just size this up a little bit better. Voila. It just sizes back up. And so coming back onto the daily time frame here. Yeah, I mean, still, this is consistently bullish. I think there's some recent news about Harmony and some of the funds it's been creating. It's been helping bring up a lot more bullish sentiment into the market here. But I think, yeah, generally from August, September time, where I started coming up with these new partnerships and fund and conferences they're putting on. I mean, they've been gaining a lot of traction and attention, so that's really been paying off. But yeah, back to my favorite Ichimoku cloud. Same thing as mentioned before. We're starting to moving up, upward trend. It is closing, so there is a possibility it might have a bit of a leveling off. Anyone who kind of trades patterns, you might want to see. We had a dump here. We had a dump there. They're about, actually, we'll just test this out right now. I don't know if this theory is going to be correct at all, but that was about, about 20 there. This is about 20. No, it's just not acting with stuff right working there. There we go. About 40 there. Yeah, I mean, if there's any kind of pullback we might be seeing, it might be maybe somewhat sizable, but it does kind of carry. It goes down, it bounces right back up because of our new higher lows, which is actually, I think, quite favorable overall. Our volume is also very good too here on the daily as well. A lot of buying pressure there, so that's actually very good to see. Trading above the 20-day moving average as well, consistently hitting the upper side of the Bollinger Bands as well. I think from here, we could probably say that buying in now at this time might be, at least from the weekly and daily, might be a little bit of a risk. I've actually recently made a 15% gain on a quick intraday trade on Harmony a few days ago. And one thing I would say is that if you're going to enter in at this point, that I take advantage of the one cancels other kind of trade, where you can set your high end and set your low limit order. So a limit order at the top, and then you can put your stop loss at the bottom, just so when it might move viciously to one side or the other, you can hedge your risk and reduce possible loss. So I would trade carefully if you're trying to buy in a position at this point. Yeah, still with my CT Mac, same here as well. Still trading above everything here favorably. So this is very bullish. This is good. Now let's move over to the 4-hour. Okay, 4-hour as well. Yeah, we're still trading above all moving averages as well. So this is definitely favorable. And so that's actually very, very bullish. So that's very good. And maybe here at the end, I mean, it's full bullish work going on here. But yeah, I mean, as around this time we had a little bit of consolidation before we started to wick further back up again. Volume is quite good. except for a little bit of a sell pressure here, but that didn't really hit us too much. Obviously, the wick showing here, we bought up and then it got bought right back down on the daily, sorry, the 4 hour here today around 5. So, I mean, man, at this current rate, I'm seeing that it might just kind of level off for a few 8, 12 more hours and possibly either go down, or I think at the current trend, it might just keep moving up. We're still above the RSI here as well. As I said before, the sign indication is going to bump down anytime soon, but it does actually show a potential risk. I would say if I bring out to the VPVR as well, yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of data in this space right now, so it's hard to see how much interest might be in this area. You know, if now since we're talking about a little bit of a shorter time frame, let me bring the trend lines here. Actually, no, I want to get a horizontal. There we go. Yeah, I mean, there is a potential risk for it to pop down quite a bit. That would be, I mean, any kind of loss potential we could be seeing could be about 10%. Maybe it could even go back lower than this. You know, I think maybe at this time, a good opportunity might be to put on some, actually, let's just clean this up a little bit. Let's see if we put on some fib retracements here. There's actually a little bit of a short time frame to do this in right now, but I suppose we can just pop it out real quick. Yeah, that's not the highest. Now I'll see a better one. Let's get right about. Yeah, I mean, even now, I mean, it's just this chart is so favorable at this time. It's hard to really see how far, how low it could possibly go. But right now, I mean, we're just trading so favorably up right now. Yeah, I mean, yeah, actually kind of plays it out quite perfectly, quite close actually. Yeah, that, I mean, we're bouncing off of 3.41 right now. So yeah, if we were to bounce back down, we're probably gonna be hitting around 2.6, so it's about 3.335. So I mean, if we were to slap back down low, you know, that's about 7% loss we might be looking at. But I mean, if we continue in this trend and we were to break above this, we could be looking at, you know, a potential upside. I say if from now up to the next level is another 10% going up here too. And just from my previous trade I had made before, 10%, 10%. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely moving at 10, 12% increments. So, I mean, at least for me, if I were to go for full bullish sentiment, I mean, if you put in a trade and things go your way, you could be making another 10%, 10, 12% in the next, oh man, maybe next few days or so. So, I mean, you know, this is just an overall bullish chart. I mean, there's a lot of positivity you can get from this here. Same thing, Ichimoku, good. Bollinger Bands, still trading well right above the top. Nothing really to complain about. It's yeah, I mean, yeah, Harmony is performing exceptionally well. So I struggle to find anything bearish really to say about this right now. But you know, because we're trading so high up and we're having such a good performance, you know, if you're going to buy in here, you need to make sure to set some stop loss. You know, as it comes with crypto, at any point in time, there's always a probability of a retrace. Like with all other assets, that's likely to come too. So overall, I say I'm overwhelmingly bullish with one here. There's good money to be made. You know, look at the chart yourself as well too, to make sure you can confirm what I'm seeing as well too. But yeah, this is a good money making opportunity. So, all right, I mean, I think that was a quick rundown of 3, you know, very good assets: Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Harmony here. Hopefully everyone, you know, enjoyed the technical analysis we put up. You know, we try to do these as often as possible, minimum 2 times a week. We'll see if we can add in a little bit more. But yeah, no, hopefully you guys can get some good alpha out of this. Yeah, but without further ado, I mean, you know, please continue to you know, like and subscribe to our channel. I mean, it really does help us out. You know, your comments, we do pay attention. We do respond back to them. So, and you know, if you shoot up a good coin that looks of interest, you want us to cover, we'll cover it. We might even give you a shout out too. So, it's definitely worth your while to you know, give us a few words of wisdom from yourself too. But yeah, it's not financial advice though. So there's a lot of hopium we all can say with other projects, but make sure you do a little bit of checking on your own too. It is your money, it's your risk as well. But that boys, that's it from me. Hopefully we can keep the pump going here, and I hope the pump will forever in perpetuity stay with you.
Pump in perpetuity. Love it.
May the pump be with you.
My boys.
May the pump be with you.